All right, good. Welcome back. Welcome back this week for What's Next. We have a great week planned for you all. And we're going to start today with international performance. So we've been kind of in a bubble here in U.S. and California dealing with the pandemic. But one of the things everybody's brought up, how amazing it is that even though we can't physically be in the same room, we are now connecting with people all over the world. And there has been performance happening all over the world and a lot of interconnection between countries. And this is kind of really exciting in this new era. So we have 4 different guests, a What's Next record, representing 4 different continents. And we're talking Sweden, Brazil, the US, and Africa. So I've got an international house in, and I'm not going to waste any time. I'm going to bring them all in here. So we're going to start live from South Africa, Napo Masheane. And I probably totally butchered your name.
No, you didn't. You didn't.
Oh, good. All right. I've been practicing.
You Wonderful. Said it. Excellent. Thank you.
All right. I'm trying. International relations. I'm working on that. So Napo is one of South Africa's leading multi-award-winning theater maker, playwright, performer, producer, poet, and director. She holds a master's degree in creative writing and has staged a number of plays and productions both nationally and internationally. Among many, she has published 3 of her own poetry anthologies, Caves Speak in Metaphors, Fat Songs for My Girlfriends, and Heartbeat of the Rain. Wonderful. Well, thank you for joining us in the studio today, Napo.
Thank you so much for having me and for bringing the whole world here. I'm so excited.
Bring it here. Yeah. All right. Our next guest isn't actually traveling from so far. He is actually based here in LA as well, although he's originally from Alaska. Lecrone, watch your microphone. Los Angeles-based Rob Lecrone has been an actor for Lecrone.
Sorry.
Oh, you're lost. Lecrone. You know, I think I'd know your name by now, but I just call you Rob.
It's
okay. I'll work on it. But after this episode, I'll be all over it.
He's
been an actor for 23 years. He maintains his ties in Alaska through the Valdez Last Frontier Theater Conference. As a featured artist, monologue workshop coach, and co-producer, co-host of the Last Frontier Festival Fringe. A lover of new work development, Lecrone, just like Lecrone. It sounds like a beer brand. Lecrone. I love Lecrone. Co-produced and acted in Julia Leader's With Love and a major organ for the 2017 VLFTC. Pre-lockdown, he co-produced and starred in Saul in the world premiere of Nicholas Walker's Herbert's Bloodless. And his MFA thesis project is in television, film, and theater. Lecrone is a member of LA's Sacred Fools Theater Company that's also been very active out there. So thank you, Rob, for coming in and joining.
Yeah, it's great to be here. Thanks.
All right. Okay. Sorry, butchering your name, Lecrone. Next up, of course, I mess up the American name, right? Next up, Rodolfo García Vázquez. Rodolfo.
Yes. Hi, Matthew.
You look great there. I like the light in the corner. Born in São Paulo, Rodolfo founded Os Satros in 1989 with Ivan Cabral. Throughout his career, he directed theater productions such as Libertine Trilogy, based on Marquis de Sade, Philosophy in the Boudoir, 120 Days of Sodom and Justine, and the People Trilogy, Perfect People, Sublime People, and Mean People. He's been researching on technology and theater since 2009. That was a good plan. That was a smart idea. Yeah. With a master about telepresence. Ooh. He was one of the founders of SP Escola de Teatro, the largest drama school in Latin America. Very nice. And Rodolfo actually is an old Hollywood Fringe person. He brought Philosophy of the Boudoir back in 2013. So that's great. Memories. All right. Well, thank you so much for coming, Rodolfo.
Thank you, Matthew, for the invitation.
So my final guest, coming all the way from Sweden, and as part Swede, I have a certain connection with you, Kata Paisan.
Well, sounds nice, but usually,
nice, but it's not right.
No, it doesn't matter.
I think we're learning one of the rules of international production is that it's important to learn how to say each other's name. I think that will help relations. And I'm going to start on that. So say it one more time, Kata.
Paulson.
Kata Paulson has worked as an actress on stage, radio, and she co-founded Darling Desperados in 1987. She's been a lead producer for 10 years in Unga Klara, Sweden's national scene for children and adult, with world-leading research and artistic approaches in new tours and collaborations internationally. Her master in film and media, Art of Impact, led her to work with VR, AR, and 360. I'm as a new arts form of exploration. Her next step is working on her PhD in new media. Also, good timing with this. You're doing good. That's great. All right, well, let's bring them all in. Thank you, Kata, for coming.
Thank you for having me. It's going to be nice.
I think so. As soon as I get through the names, I think we're going to be great here. All right, let's get Rodolfo. The gang. Hey, everyone. All right. So thank you all for coming. You look great. I'm loving the internationalness of this whole thing. So for those of you who've been watching the show or see it, what we tend to do is we give each of you guys a few moments to kind of tell us about your COVID pivot moment. So we're all going through life. We wake up January. It's great. Big plans. We're going to have a big year. We're going to do all this stuff. And then suddenly mid-March happens, at least in the US, and everything changes. And we all start doing new things. So let's go around the screen. Let's start up on the top left with Napo. Can you give us kind of what you were doing, and briefly, since there's a lot of us, but basically, what were you doing before, and then what was your pivot? What changed?
So I just gotten back from Sweden. I'm one of the advisory board member for Stockholm University of Performing Arts and the Performing Arts. And, I've been going there almost every now and again. I travel all over the world. I got back because myself and through my company, Village Production, and my colleagues, we were planning the first African and the Diaspora Theatre Summit that we've been working on for a year. I had about 300 guests that were coming from all over the continent and the diaspora. And I was doing a production at the Market Theatre, which is one of the theatres that, first trained and housed me and accepted me as a young upcoming, Black female theatre maker. I woke up on the 21st and the president of South Africa said to all of us that the theater doors must be locked down. And I think I didn't hear it properly. I thought, no, there must be a mistake because my life is planned. Like I'm going everywhere. I'm going to travel. I've got scripts in my bag. I've got words in my mouth. I'm mind you, I'm confirming sponsorship funders. I'm talking to delegates from all over the continent, and I'm supposed to book flights, and I've got, something coming in the bank. And then there's like a pause, a dramatic pause. And you know what, Matthew? It took me a month. I mourned. Yeah. I mourned. I got through the depression, the denial. I was like, no, this is not gonna happen. This is not happening. This is not affecting us. We are down in the South. This is happening in Europe and in America. Africans, it's not gonna affect us. Like I came up with so many myths in my head until I realized that this is the new norm and something I needed to adapt to. And I started writing letters and postponing projects, losing work, putting work on hold. So it was quite tough. And until the art of facing fear came and brought me back to life.
All right, wonderful. Well, I'm glad you've come around, and I know your words echo with many of us. And we'll talk more about the art of facing fear. But let's move over to Kata. How was your pivot moment in March?
Well, at that point, I was doing two things. I was finishing my master, and the biggest problem with that was that we could never meet the audience with our shows. And that was really terrible because all the point was how to meet the audience with this new media. So that was a bit of a very sad moment, but it wasn't that terrible because we could still work and we could still do our things, and we just sort of postponed that we some time later on will meet the audience. And also in my work at Unga Klara, we were at that point going out to schools and playing. And since in Sweden, the schools were and are still open for children up to 16 years old. So we were out there playing in the classrooms with the children. So work-wise, it wasn't that huge difference. But there, of course, it was a feeling in the whole country of that nobody knew what is going to happen, and for a lot of freelancer, everything closed down, and especially for technicians and all the people backstage, it was a huge gap for economics and everything. But but now Sweden is sort of back.
All right.
Last weekend now here, almost all the theaters in Sweden had their opening nights and they're playing again. But we're still only having like 50 people in the audience, but the show is on and people have been rehearsing since end of the summer. So it's going back, but it's very strange, like when you have a huge auditorium and it's only 50 people sitting there, then you have to act in a very different way. But yeah.
All right. Well, we'll go back around too. That's interesting. Because did Sweden? Well, we'll come back to it, because that's a topic. But thank you very much, Kata. It's good to hear that at least shows are up and people are getting it going out. That's that's a big step. So speaking of Rob, we're here in LA. How was your pivot?
Oh man, so I went back to school in 2017 for an MFA. I think I'm actually sure I was the oldest student in my acting cohort for it. And so in March of this year, I was working on Masheane production, which is a show by Nicholas Walker Herbert, who's in Sacramento, who I met at the Valdez Last Frontier Theater Conference in Alaska. A show called Bloodless, which was a dystopian show. So it was really strange to be interrupted by all these things that could be, what leads to a dystopia? Where is the line? I don't know. But we were getting ready to start that show. We had 8 performances scheduled. We got 2 of them. Before we did those performances, we were suddenly taking out chairs from the space, which were bolted in so that there was a distance between people. We didn't really know exactly what was going on yet. As a matter of fact, in the rehearsal period, there were times when we were wearing masks because there were some very close moments. There's a kiss in the show, and some of us had colds or there was talk of COVID. So we were trying to be very careful. And so for 2 days, I'm doing this show in front of small audiences where I'm actually kissing another person. and then to this moment of, oh, now I've got a class to teach with these undergrad students. I've got my classes to finish. Everybody's at home. What do I do? Focusing on first the class I'm teaching, because more people are affected by that than just me. And it was a way to give myself some sort of sense of being involved in a way besides my own classes. I couldn't really focus on those. Finally getting through that semester and doing some coaching through the monologue workshop at the theater conference. We were supposed to take the show up to the conference as well. And got to do some online coaching for a couple of weeks, which was wonderful. It gave me 2 weeks of planning, 2 weeks of coaching, made me feel like I had things that I was doing. And then a couple of weeks where nothing was going on. It's, well, do I even get out of bed today some days? This kind of feeling that I think people can relate to. Then getting called to be the American producer for The Art of Facing Fear it gave me that same thing that the monologue workshop did. This something to do, the ability to move on, the ability to continue to make art, to connect with people around the world and around the nation. It really kind of wonderful. So finding ways to move forward really is what helps.
Yeah. Oh man, you hit a few points. Connection and keeping busy. That's what I'm looking for now. Give me both.
Yeah.
And the man who kind of made that call to you, that gave you that, who kind of started this whole ball rolling many moons ago in COVID time, Rodolfo.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about what happened with you at the beginning of this year.
Yeah, well, just the situation in Brazil is very complicated because our president is against the artistic community. So we had big problems with the president, but our theater, we had two venues in a small square. It's like an off-Broadway area in downtown São Paulo. So we were always very busy, lots of shows. We had like 3 or 4 shows at the same time.
Wow.
And we had the school, which was very busy. And then suddenly we had the pandemic arriving just like out of the blue, and we didn't know what to do, but we knew that we could not stop. So Ivan Cabral, the other founder of Sátiros, he had a monologue, and we started immediately. Like the quarantine started the 20th, so the 22nd of March, he was already on YouTube performing every weekend.
Wow.
And then after 3 weeks, we were like, each actor was in his own home, and we were like alone and feeling that it would be long and it would be complicated. So we were offered a Zoom room to start researching for a show. And we decided, why not? So the actors were all around Brazil. They were not all in the same, in São Paulo. They were everywhere around. But we called them and they accepted. And then in the first week of June, we opened The Art of Facing Fear for the Brazilian audiences in Portuguese. And that was it. And then everything changed.
Wow. So you pivoted to a full performance first week of June.
Yes.
That's very impressive.
We started rehearsing the second week of April.
Wow. Wow. So you just went. So let's talk. So all of you, and if I didn't make this clear, each one of you represent not only a continent that is being involved in this production. There are 10 countries that are doing this Art of Facing Fear, 4 continents, and 3 separate versions of the show.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
So and so basically you've got Rodolfo. You started this in June in Brazil, in São Paulo, to be precise, in terms of the city. And then there was the African European version, and that was Napo and Kata, or Desperados. What was the African? What was the African European companies that put that together?
Katia, you gonna go?
I can go. Yeah, it was basically that Rodolfo has, for his Brazilian version, asked Darling Desperados Ulrika Malmgren to participate in that. And together they created this idea, or the urge, that this has to spread. It cannot only be in Brazil, it has to go further. So Ulrika asked me, what do you think? Shall we do it? And I said, yes. And then Ulrika contacted Napo because they know each other since before. And I contacted some other people we knew. And then, the ball was rolling.
So Rodolfo, was that part of when you first did the show in June, were you thinking I'm eventually going to bring this out around the world, or were you just looking to do the show?
I had no clue this was going to happen. I mean, it was like this, like we were rehearsing in our Zoom. We didn't know even how to go into the Zoom room. We didn't know anything about Zoom. We were like, crazy people jumping into a Zoom room. And then I asked, I was speaking to Ulrika, and I said, why not? I mean, what's the difference if she's in Stockholm or in São Paulo? It's the same. We are in the same screen. Yeah. So it's everything all right. like this meeting we have now, we are in 4 different continents and we are speaking live, and that's okay. I mean, we are living like the Jetsons, you know?
We absolutely are. And it's so amazing. Like, even when we were setting up for this, like, the biggest tech problem we had was the person who's in LA. Like, tech suddenly makes this all very equal for us. We're all kind of on the same platform. And another point that I think you brought up that's interesting is you just did it. I think the people who are venturing out right now, there is no playbook. There's no like, oh, pandemic, turn to page 100.
Yeah.
So the artists are getting a chance to play. And so, Kata Napo, so you saw the production, and then how did that work in terms of development? Did Rodolfo direct it? Did you guys do it? Like, how did this show spread from Sao Paulo to Africa, Europe?
I mean, like Kata said that her colleague Eureka, called me, and I was called into this meeting with also Clara from the Market Theatre and Baola from Nigeria. And firstly, I'm thinking, what is this? Firstly, this is the Zoom thing, and I'm going through my own thing. I'm like, why am I even being brought into this? And I remember I asked the question, I listened to them, and I'm like, listen here, what do you want from me? Like, do you want me to perform? You want me to cover the whole of South Africa to take part? Like, I don't even know the script. And they were like, we want you to perform and be one of the co-producers. And immediately I was like, listen, this is revolutionary. This is theater evolving. There's no way I'm not going to be part of history and history. I was like, nah, I'm in. I'm going to get everybody that I
know. So the June production happened. When did the African European version get up? Like, when did you start rehearsing, and when did it actually go up?
We did it for 2 weeks, right? It was in July. We met for 10 days, exactly 10 days. And we heard that the Brazilians had more time. So for 2 weeks. But I kid you not, Matthew, Rodolfo is one of the most amazing directors, and he's so patient and so understanding, but also just how all of us are technologically challenged. And in South Africa, there's also load shedding. So I could be talking to you guys now, always have to have candles because I can lose my lights. So there's always drama happening somewhere.
The drama of the drama. Yeah, that is quite a challenge. Because Rodolfo, you're directing all these shows from your home or theater, and you're just looking at screens and doing it. That must have been quite a challenge.
Oh, and like, we didn't want the shows to be the same. We wanted the show had a different perspective from each place. So the African European production is completely different from the Brazilian one, and it's also very different from the American one. And so this was the challenge, because we had a few days, and also it was very difficult to convince or to explain to people what we were doing. It's the challenge we have right now with audiences and with the journalists. They don't understand what we are doing. They don't know what we are doing.
Yeah, it's part of the challenge of being new.
Yeah.
And in a world where you can't just sit next to somebody and really and this is what it is. It's tough. But you did it, and you had a successful run then in Africa and Sweden. And then you decided to keep on going. So how did you hook up with Rob, and how did you get that American leg of the journey going on?
So then Ulrika as well, again, the witch, the Scandinavian witch, the Viking witch, she said, oh, why don't we speak to Steve Rothman from UCLA State University? And we talked to him, and also with you and with Rob, and then we made a Los Angeles connection to the show, So, but of course, we have artists from all over the United States. So this is amazing. We have people from Alaska, from New York, from Georgia. Yeah. And this is great, because you have a national cast,
Yeah, and Rob, I've got to ask. I know this is probably true with Kata and Napo too. Producing a show is tough enough in the best of terms, but producing a show during a pandemic when your actors are scattered throughout the nation and the world, and even though the show's been done, in a sense, it's in the can, but as Rodolfo said, you're making changes for each cast. How was that for you? And you acted in it as well, correct?
Yeah, acting in it. We've got one more weekend left. I just want to say that because still acting in it, still producing it, still want people to come. So let me get back to your question. Yes.
Good plug. Rob.
Right. Yeah. I mean, man, it's. I don't know that it's more difficult or less difficult to produce a show right now when you actually have the technology to do it and have the trendsetter that has already happened, Rodolfo, with the previous shows, the use of the technology that's already been tested and pushing the boundaries of that. So really it comes down to the same things of production, which is like, what does a producer do, right? Which is anything that needs to be done to make the show happen. So me, the opportunity to reach out to actors for the first stage of casting, this to me is not a challenge, it's an opportunity. Where do we find our actors? Who do we reach out to? How do we get a diverse cast? And how far across the United States can we spread? So that was really exciting. And it's hard to divorce the need to be doing something and have meaning in life from the work involved, right? So there were days when I would wake up at 9 a.m. and not go to bed until 3 a.m. because there was always something to do, but the way that I was filled by it made it all worthwhile.
Yeah, we need stuff to do, man, and nothing like a good artistic project. Yeah. So I saw the show back in Brazil. I loved the show. It was haunting, exciting, and I instead of me kind of talking about it, we have a clip. We had some technical difficulties, but Miles, if you can bring up my share screen, I want to show us a clip of it. So as we talk more, we have kind of a reference of what we're looking at, and unfortunately, the sound wasn't working. But I think the producer said they would sing along. Is that what I understand? That you would hum along and fill it in? No, don't do that. All right. So I'd like to call up this clip. This is actually the short trailer from the American production, but we'll give you a little bit of an idea of what we're talking about.
Well, there you go.
Yeah.
There you go. All right. So that's a busy show. There is some imagery and graphics, and the music. I'm so upset that we don't have music because it just adds another level. But what I want to point out is these shows are all being done live. There is not a situation where this is a video, but you use videos during the show to get some of that wonderful effect. But you put all of this live. So kind of to all of you, how was that challenge? I mean, that was a very complicated thing I just saw. How did you fuse that together? Was this just Zoom? Like, tell me a little bit about how you put that show together.
Well, I think the actors should speak because, as a matter of fact, I just see the images. So they are responsible for everything on stage in the sense that they open the cameras and they play live, But for me, it's we've had many crazy situations with no electricity, no connectivity, no actor sometimes. So, but I think they should speak.
Napo?
Okay, great. Yeah, please. What was it like to be an actor with all that going on? Rob, Napo?
I mean, it took me back to the essence that even within this digital new form, the butterflies are still there. I still get anxious. I still worry about my lines. I still worry about the lighting. If I'm visible, I still have to meditate and warm up. I still have to set my own costume. Actually, the work is double the amount. So we worked with an amazing designer, Adriana, and what she always said was that she's collaborating because she's in Brazil, but she would work with you and you would make suggestions. So it was really a collaborative kind of like process, which is what I loved.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's wonderful. That's wonderful.
It's true. And for me, kind of what Napo's getting at a little bit of all the work backstage. I'm going to call it backstage because that's what it feels like. You're in your own space. I'm in one room. I'm in a little studio, right? And so I'm in one room, but I have 3 locations in this one little room. I've got an IKEA cart with wheels that with books set up here on top of it that my laptop is on, and then I can wheel it to the different locations. But you're running around just like you are backstage in a real show. You're running around, but now you're turning on and off lights, removing window coverings to control the lights, putting them back on for the next scene, changing the background for a scene, all of that stuff. And then we've got WhatsApp going on for
WhatsApp. Where you get your cues.
Yeah.
So WhatsApp is your cue, was your like stage manager telling you go?
Yes.
And stuff.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's where the damage, where we're saving the situation. If I'm like, oh guys, I'm frozen. Oh, my lights went off. Kata will come in. There's also improvisation.
Yeah. And stage manager, I don't know. We don't have one. There's
stage manager.
The other. So the go is everybody together, working together to know your cues, and then watching the WhatsApp to see if there's a problem, and if there's a problem, stepping in and solving it.
But the most amazing thing, I think, is what Napo talked about, is that it is like the normal theater thing going on. It's like you get to know each other, and it feels like we are really working together. It feels like you get as close as you do when you work live. The only thing is, like, after the show, when I turn off my screen, I expect to see all my fellow actors. Like when you go off stage, it's like, oh, here they are. No, they're not. Where are they? That physical feeling is the hardest thing, because it feels so real when you rehearse, when you act, when you do the show, and then you want to sort of debrief together physically as well. But then it's like that is the hardest part, I think, to understand that we actually aren't in the same physical space, because it feels like we are.
It's true. We've managed.
Sorry. Yeah.
No, I was going to say that it's definitely true that it's the same layers, same, feeling and all that. The only thing is that you don't, even when you're nervous, we talk to each other, the support. Like I said, the improvisation, like jumping in when somebody has missed the line, same thing. The only thing is that people are not physically there. You're on your own, which also connects to the fear of feeling claustrophobic and alone in the world during this pandemic and lockdown.
Yeah, and to some extent, there's even more support because of the fact that backstage during a show, you have to be quiet, right? But here you can be in WhatsApp having these moments of, oh my God, that was amazing. Wow, you made me cry. These different things that you can actually have the conversation in the middle of it. In some ways, the technology connects us even more. We're here in a space for rehearsals where we have to give each other space. We have to, with Zoom, Rogelio Douglas III, one of our actors, talks about this a lot, that you have to really listen, and you have to give each other space, and you have to respect each other in a way that sometimes in the room where there might be an individual who's a little problematic or something going on there, that it's a little bit harder. But here you have to learn in a different way, and I think it can help us all. I think it's great.
Yeah, there's definitely, from talking to you and others, the skill set of listening is so important in being aware. And then you're a set designer. You're a lighting designer. You're a costume makeup. You are pushing the boundaries as an artist, and you're a technician. I mean, welcome to video, the video world. So that really, that part of it seems really exciting. But then I hear you. One of my favorite parts of the show is after the show, going out for a drink with the cast, giving a hug, laughing about some jokes, things that happen. And it's just a little different now. And we're all kind of relating to that. So we saw the American clip, and I know there were some overarching themes for this show in terms of, the political state, the obvious pandemic state that we're going through. And what was interesting, and I've only seen 2 of the versions. There's going to be an opportunity to see all 3 soon, which we'll be talking about. But what were the elements, since we don't really, we've got the video, but it doesn't have sound. So I don't know, you can tell me, we can play it if that helps, or do you want to kind of discuss what makes the 3 shows different? Do you want to play the video even if it doesn't have sound?
I think so. That would be
great.
Let's do it. So Miles is up.
Yeah, and we can talk about that while it plays, maybe.
Yeah, in fact, that's a great, since Rob, excellent choice. So here we go, and this looks like the African European version.
Yeah. So I think in the African European version, you see like one South African, one German, a South African. So you see different nationalities. This is an English actress. So we have different countries, and each one has a different perspective for the pandemic. The reality in England is completely different from Sweden or from South Africa, Nigeria. So it was very interesting to mix all these layers of fears concerning the pandemic, So it was very interesting and very complex. In the Brazilian case, what inspired us was the fear of being taken by an authoritarian regime, because in the beginning of the pandemic, we were being threatened by the extreme right movement, and they were asking for a military dictatorship in the streets, and only them were in the streets. We were not in the streets, the other part of the nation. So it looked like we would have a coup d'etat, and this was our fear, And so the text from The Art of Facing Fear is pandemics and dictatorship, how these 2 aspects of a future possible reality for Brazilians was. So this was the beginning, So it was different, I think. The feeling was different.
Yeah, I mean, we, as you know, in America are having our political issues. And while coup d'etat kind of comes up at times, kind of offhandedly, it sounds like you were in a very close to reality of that situation with guns in the streets, so to speak.
Yeah, I mean, but I was gonna just chip in there, maybe that the funny thing is that I was gonna say that the funny thing is that even with the politics that are happening in America, like Black Lives Matter, in South Africa, we also have police brutality. So we found a lot of similarities, that even if politically in the big scale, we're not as much close to the situation in Brazil. Certain innuendos of what is happening in the state, we are experiencing it in South Africa, and it's black on black violence type of thing. But also in things that are happening in Brazil, one of our actors who's from Zimbabwe, has had to be exiled to South Africa because of the same situation. So there was lots and lots of similarities that played, and somehow this play. And funny enough, some of us played those characters. Like Frank played a character that actually depicted his story, and none of us, except me or a few of us knew, and it exactly became that Black Lives Matter, the character played by one of the actors, exactly the same time we had police killing people in our country.
Yeah, we had that with our show, the American version. First of all, there's so many similarities between Brazil and the United States in terms of the regime in place and what's going on. But then also things like what Napo was talking about, which is responding to what's happening in the moment. You know, protester killed in Portland, and it brought up a lot of feelings during rehearsal, especially, I mean, with all of us, but especially made some of the Black actors talk about that they needed something more in the show. So responding to what's happening and then adding in and devising new parts of the show to make it, relevant, even more relevant in the moment. Last weekend, I'm in a scene we call the dystopian scene or the political scene. And I added in just 3 words, Ruth Bader Ginsburg, to it because it was appropriate to the scene and to what's going on. And that's what we're commenting on.
That's a really interesting point, Rob. And for everyone, are you since this is a developed piece, very experimental, are you making changes with your script, like Napo, as political things change and Rodolfo caught up? Like, are changes being made pretty regularly, or were they made when you were doing the show?
It was mostly during rehearsal.
Rehearsal?
Yeah, it happened during rehearsal. I mean, we can update information in the show, you know? Like, for example, in Brazil, when we started, we had, I think we had 50,000 people dead. And now we have 130,000. It's much more. And you in the United States, 200,000.
Yeah.
It's a lot of people who died, you know? So we mentioned in the show, like in a newspaper, new numbers, you know? We do that in Brazil every performance. We update the number of deaths. So this show is necessary. This show is necessary because of that, because it's the way theater can talk about what is happening to everyone now. It's through this means. I mean, we have it. We are in a new step in mankind's history. You know, we are living a double life, a digital life and a physical life. Yeah. And and theater has to be everywhere, in churches, in hospitals, and in the digital life as well. So it's part of it, and we have to do it. I mean,
one of the amazing things I think is the participation of the audience, which update us that we are asking the audience of their fears and also people that they have lost. And it's really, really touching, you know, to hear all these fears and the stories. And it's also so similar. It doesn't depend on what, because we always ask the audience to write from where they're watching, and you don't have to know it because it's so human tragedies coming all over from all the places, which is also very important, not only for us as artists, but I think also for the audience to see and connect through the world, that they also talk to each other about the fears, and that the theater, and especially this show, is making a place to meet and talk about these things that I think is really, really extreme, fantastic, that no other shows have had, and that is so amazing, and what makes it so close to what you call real theater, that you're actually having the interaction with the audience in this way. So I think it's marvelous.
Yeah, once again, the connectivity, we're creating that. We want to connect and make sure that we're like, we see that we're on the same page with everyone. Like you said, we're all kind of in this, and that helps, I think, knowing that. So all of this, all these different parts, all of you guys coming together, being able to express, what have been some of the unique challenges that you had with this international process? And actually, let me step that back. We've been seeing all of these shows. We got to see a few trailers. We got to talk about the little differences. You guys are planning a large event this Saturday, where all 3 shows are going to be playing on September 26th. Now, this is the first time this has happened. It's going to be a worldwide event.
Yeah.
And an audience member is going to be able to see each show if they want to stay up throughout the course of the day. We encourage that, to go see that show each day. They're going to see all the slight differences and all that. And really connect. You're going to have questions and answers and all that to follow the show. So there'll be plenty of chances to connect. Now, I can only imagine, even though I kind of know, that the process to put all of this together is kind of crazy when you are talking time zones, internet loads, people in apartments or houses or outside or wherever they can do this. You guys are all smiling. You have a very good view of the chaos that we lived like this morning that we kind of went through. So what were those? We talked about how good and great it was connecting. What were the challenges that anybody out there watching who is thinking of doing some international work, what kind of advice could you give them from your challenges?
I think one of the biggest challenge was just, and I think Kata mentioned it earlier on, about trying to explain to the audience, or I think it's Rodolfo and the media, to say, this is not a Zoom meeting. This is not a webinar. This is an actual performance. So trying to convince your ordinary audience members, trying to even, convince the journalists, the media guys to come in, and people don't understand it, they don't get it. And it's so hard to explain, because you have to see it, you have to experience it, and only after you've experienced it, you are like, oh my God, I thought theater had died. I thought that was it.
Yeah. I just to add to that, like there are audience members who are coming back 2 or 3 times to see this show, and I think the reason that they are is because some of them haven't, and some of them have seen Zoom readings, and some of them have been in meetings all day in Zoom, and now they're realizing that they can see something on Zoom that isn't draining their energy. It's adding to their energy. It's giving them an experience, and it's actually a theater experience. So what I was talking about the feeling backstage, being an actor, that I feel like I'm really backstage, like I'm really in live theater. I think the audience is experiencing that too. And as Napo was saying, the difficulty is, the biggest challenge is convincing the audience prior to coming to the show to come to the show. It's not what they are expecting. It's something more, it's something bigger. And while we are pushing the boundaries of the digital theater, there is more to push with the boundaries. So in answer to the part of your question about what to tell others who might want to do this, is do it. Don't just think in terms of, oh, I need to be in this one little space. Remember that you can move all around. You can actually set up scenes. You can do a lot more with it. And it can be amazing.
Mm-hmm.
It sounds like, and I know I've been very impressed with all the shows, PR marketing. Like a lot of images, you did a lot of graphics and images that kind of displayed the show. The trailers that we saw were very visual, and even though you didn't hear it, wonderful underscore. That's true in a theater world anyway. Getting that word out, what is it that we see? But when we're talking about a new medium, you've got a double duty of not just, okay, it's a show and here's what the play's about, but you're going to watch it through your TV. And then you have a very extensive, like, half-hour walking the audience through, mute this, push a speaker view. Like, you have to train your audience how to be an audience. It's not show up 10 minutes before the show, sit down, turn off your cell phone, and unwrap your candy. Like, you've got an excessive amount of things that they need to go through. How was that? Is that something that you learned? Did you go in it that? How did you handle with some of the tech tackles?
Well, as I said, when we started with Zoom, we didn't know what we could do. We didn't know anything. And then it was a huge process of, acknowledging everything that was possible. Even now we are learning a lot. And I think even the Zoom people, the Zoom owner, it's a Chinese man, I think, he has never thought of theater. I mean, for him, I mean, he's thinking about business, not about
Right.
theater.
Right.
So we kidnapped his Zoom technology, which is typical from theater. I mean, theater is always kidnapping lots of things around the world. It's part of our job. And so, but when we were going to open the first performance in Brazil, we said, but people don't know how to watch it.
Yeah.
Because if we are digital artists, we have to teach the digital audience how to be.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because everything we're speaking now, probably if we record this interview or this talk we have and show in 10 years, and people will say, oh my God, what were they speaking at that time long ago? Because when the electric light came to theater, everybody, it was a chaos as well, a chaos. Nobody knew what to do with the electric light, you know? Is this theater? Is this not theater? Gordon Craig is crazy. What is he doing? And now, you know, like it's usual. So this is, for me, this is historical in this sense, because of course theater is going to kidnap this space for us. It's part of our job, and it's going to happen.
Good job. Well done, kidnapping. Good job.
Kidnappers.
I want to toss in there, having working with you on this and all that. The one thing that it really opened my eyes to is the importance of time zones in publicity. Like, I have never before been so aware of putting my little time zone marker. Like, it really is no longer thinking locally, it's thinking globally. And when are people going to see this? You know, US, we have like 4 or 5 different time zones, but we really just concentrate on ours. So it was kind of, it's changing the world mind. It's starting to change. Like, we're not just in this local thing, local community. We're part of this world, and we got to be aware. Any other kind of comments, good and bad, about the process and what you learned from this?
I have one other comment before anybody else, because I'm going to just step in.
American.
Yeah, American. So one thing that I find with this that's really great, really empowering, is the idea that theater still to some extent is classist. You know, not everybody gets to see theater. And there are some people who say that maybe this isn't theater. Some of them haven't seen what we're doing. It is. I believe it is theater. And I believe it also is a way to open up theater to people who don't usually get to see it, to, you know, I'll just leave it there. I think it will exist along with theater when we're back on stages, because it's a different type of theater that gets things out broader to more people.
No, definitely. Yeah. I wanted to say, from Africa, Europe, one of the beauty is the multi-languages that we used in this play. I think when we were counting, there was like more than 10 languages. Wow. So it also, which also adds to the evolving of theater, which is one of the things I specialize in as a playwright, that you cannot write for Nina, who's in Germany, in Zulu, you know, and you can't expect a South African to speak only English. So the diversity and how we've managed to incorporate, you know, Swedish, you know, German, and all these diverse languages from Senegal to Zimbabwe to Cape Verde, it's just mind-blowing. And I'm like, wow, you know, it's history in the making, you know?
So I've got to ask, that's wonderful. And again, it just shows you, and I think in Europe, Africa, the rest of the world has a better sense of a world connection, because the countries all next to each other, where we're kind of America over here. But with all the languages, and I know in your respective continents, these languages exist all there. For the show, did you have, it was Portugal's show was all in Portuguese. So you had 10 different languages. Did you have subtitles or anything? Or were you just, did you repeat the sentences in each language? You just picked it up in context?
That's the beauty of multiple languages and the power of theater. It's like music, you know, you can listen to a Brazilian music, you can listen to and any music from any language in Africa. It's a universal like language. You understand. A person doesn't have to repeat or echo. By the mere action and passion and expression, you feel it. And it just shows you how one we are and how connected we are beyond the imagination. And I think that's the beauty of theater. It constantly is pushing the boundaries, but also affirming to us that we are not that different. We are the same.
Oh, I love that. That's a clip. That will be a clip. That was so well said. I just loved it. And I agree. I think part of this, what's the beauty about what you're doing and the art of facing fear is how you're showing this message is so universal that we can all communicate with it, whatever the language, visually, music wise. And I'm really excited to be a part and helping with this show, and very excited about this show Saturday, otherwise known as, I just saw Rodolfo go, what did you? Sunday, September 26th. So for those of you who haven't gotten a chance to see this, except for the clips, the American version is running through this weekend on the 26th and 27th. Shows are Saturday at 5, Sunday at 3. But then we have a special performance this Saturday where all three are going to do it at different times, as I mentioned. So if you guys can kind of talk about, give the times and all that, and I guess what I kind of relayed what the show's about, but I guess any comments and thoughts about this show this weekend in terms of that?
I'd like to say that one thing that digital theater offers is a more democratic access in terms of geography, because generally when you think of theater, you think of big cities with big venues or traditional venues, and then the rest of the nation, they have to come to the theater to see it. So they have to come from different places to see. And in digital theater, you can be in the smallest town in Alaska. You can be in the smallest town in Georgia or in, I don't know. It happened in Brazil. Our audience became broad. So it's just a question of time zones. And this is important. That's why we have to change our mindset. We have to speak about time zones, because we can offer different opportunities for different parts of the country or of the continent of the world. And so, for example, I'm completely lost with the time zones. I ask my friends to say, because I have no idea. I have no clue.
I am with you, Rodolfo. Yes.
I have a page up on my computer that I don't know if I can share it, and I could show you what the time zones are. Is that?
Oh, you want to put it? Yeah. Why don't you know what? That's great. And I was going to show the links. If you go ahead and share screen, and then Miles can bring that up. And while you're doing that, to be clear, a time zone. So I'm going to do it, since this is LA based, and for those Americans out there in LA, I'm going to use this as an example so I can bring up all your links. So the first show is going to be in what country?
Let's just.
The African European version starting, and I think it's the LA 12 o'clock.
So here is the link.
Because we're playing Stockholm, Johannesburg time 9. And then 2.5 hours later is the Brazilian one. And then 2.5 later after that, it's the American one. So I think it's your 12, 2:30, and 5, if I remember it.
I am impressed, Kata, because I'm like Rodolfo. I find this like
very good with it. That's why I was like, I'm not answering that one.
I know.
I'm gonna show up for all three.
So these are the link. This is the link for anybody who wants to get tickets for the African European or the Brazilian show. In addition, this is the Swedish company Darling Desperados, where you can also get tickets there or get a link to that. And then this is the Brazilian company, the founding company, Osatros. And then the American show, which I said is happening at 5 o'clock, you can get your tickets here. And if you want to be in touch with the Villa Gossip Productions and Napo, you can visit her on Facebook. So we've got a lot, but this is where it gets the complication of international, everybody around. like we had a big meeting to get the graphic together to do the times. And do you have that ready, Rob?
I think so. Yeah, I tried to share the web page, but now I'm trying to share a preview graphic. So,
well, I could tell a curiosa, since you talked about that Rodolfo came to LA with one of his shows. Darling Desperados was also actually in LA in 1993. We played Henry Farrell's Whatever Happened to Baby Jane with the hardcore music.
Yeah,
and apparently an audience from the American show saw us at that point when I was watching the American show. So it has been connections through times via this show.
I agree. And I'm hoping for more connections. So here is the graphic and the designer. I got to say, once again, Rodolfo, your designer is phenomenal over there in Brazil. Did a great job of. Let me take that banner out of there. What's his name?
Enrique Melo.
Phenomenal work, Enrique. So somehow he was able to capture the essence of each show, as well as, and you can just see those time zones, but it's not just 3 productions, but those productions cross also different timelines. So you've got Nigeria, Senegal, South Africa, Sweden, Cape Verde, England, Brazil. I mean, the world is represented on here. And it's obviously very important for people to get the time and to find it. But please do take the time to do it. I was very moved by this show. I am finding people are finding a nice solace in seeing the show, like a shared community that people, I think in part, they're coming back because there are others there going through what they're going through. And I really, I have to say, just for all of you, thank you for doing this. Not only just doing this show, that was great, but for keeping the faith of art and keeping it alive. A lot of people locked the door, turned off the lights, stayed in bed. I get that. I understand that. Yeah. But I feel that now that it's been 6 months, it's beautiful to see artists sharing a vision from all over the world, despite our differences, and uniting to tell a very important story of sharing very important thoughts. So thank you all. A big thanks for all of you guys.
They'll be getting the applause that we miss.
Yeah, right, exactly. And before we sign off, can you give us a little idea of what's next for you? What's happening? And we can start with Kata and just go around the circle. What's kind of coming up?
Well, Darling Desperados is actually right now producing a show with a lot of new media in a venue here in Stockholm that we hopefully will be able to send on YouTube. That's our vision, that you could sit anywhere also and follow us on this show, because we have been so inspired, and we just had a meeting about that today. So hopefully in the near future we get more info about that.
Okay, good. And I was going to ask this earlier, and you kind of mentioned it. Sweden is open now, right? So people, physically distanced theater, people can actually go out.
We sort of still have the same rules. I mean, you should stay home if you're sick. You should have like 2 meters between you. All these kind of things. But the universities that were closed before is open now, and the theaters has opened, the things has started to open. So we're having like a month of tryout now to see if it works or if we have to go back.
All right. Thinking good thoughts. That's wonderful. Thank you, Kata.
Thank you.
Rob, what have you got planned here in LA next stops?
Well, so I still have to finish writing my thesis paper so that I can actually graduate with my MFA. Which means that I'm still like technically at Cal State LA, where Steve Rothman is, who is the person who introduced me to Rodolfo. And Steve is trying to learn from this production and push the boundaries some more with the production of War of the Worlds at Cal State LA. So he's invited me into that to play an officer in that, and to also sometimes give some tech advice or consultancy. So yeah, that's really exciting. It's also been kind of it's a new adaptation, I guess is what I'm trying to say, that takes into account these times, things like Black Lives Matters and COVID.
That's great. And of course, us in California, we are still basically, theaters are closed. We've got, you can audition, you can have auditions, rehearsals, and filming in the theater. No workshops, no productions. And we'll see how that goes in time. Rodolfo, how's it? What's next? What's next?
Well, we've just opened another show. New Normals is the name. And I mean, lots of ideas. Maybe we continue with the digital theater around the world and connecting to other countries, other artists, to ourselves. And even when the pandemic is over, I think this is something that came to go on. I mean, it's not to stop. It's not just a step. It's something for the future.
I agree. And a quick question, show of hands, is everybody going to keep doing online digital work even after the theaters open up? Show of hands.
Yes.
All right. Yeah, I agree. And before we go to Napo, Rodolfo, how is it in Brazil? Are theaters open? What's the lockdown status?
We have no theaters open now, and we have some support from the government, not the Brazilian government, but the state and the city, and they are supporting digital performances. So we have a policy for digital work nowadays in Brazil, which is, which is something for the future as well. I don't know to which extent our work had some influence in this decision.
Oh, I bet it did. I tell you, that image with all the faces, that's just, I love that. Affecting. Napo, what's next with you? What's going on?
Well, the good thing is that I'm going back on stage after 10 years as an actress. So I'm doing my one-woman show titled My Vagina Was Not Buried With Me, which has a lot to do with gender-based violence, which is one of the biggest challenges in South Africa. So I'm getting back on stage, and I will be hosted by University of Johannesburg, and it's going to premiere at the end of October, 1st of November, actually, at the Toronto International Theatre Festival. So I'm looking forward to that. I'm taking off my head as a playwright and producer and director. I'm just going to be a child and a student of theater, and hopefully next year, then it can travel all over the world. So I've got an amazing team, and I'm excited with that. Beautiful. And of course, I'm going to be teaching with Rodolfo at the school. I'm teaching theater history. I specialize in theater history and narratives. I'm going to be teaching that online. So it's good that I'm using also the digital space to teach in different universities, and I've been doing it for the past 3 months. But I'm happy to be back on stage and to perform.
Yes, that is great. And how is Africa now in terms of open shutdown status?
Well, the theaters they've been closed. So there's been a lot of virtual works that have been produced by different theaters and been shared on the digital space. But as of the 1st of October, more audiences can come into theater. But of course, everybody's very, fidgety and, still not comfortable. So I think that's why most of our audiences, as theater makers, will keep on taking theater to them. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, it is very interesting to hear kind of across the world. I actually find it very hopeful to hear that venues are opening in parts of the country, and that maybe in a few months we'll be seeing that. But more importantly, I just want to reiterate that the work you're doing, I think, is so important for art now. It's people need this. We got some comments coming in from the audience who also seem to agree. Come see these shows. If you get a chance to see even one, great play, great work, great Karina. Thank you for that. Really support these artists. Go out and see an international. Take a chance on a Portuguese show if you're American, or an African European. You hear 10 different languages. It really is right now. I think this is the future of it in terms of connections, international work. I know live theater is going to come back, but this digital theater has really opened it up. And I feel we're doing things we've never done before. So you've got your fans out there. Thank you all. I can't wait for the shows this weekend. We hope all of you will see it. Come visit YouTube here, subscribe, check out all the information. Tomorrow, we are making musicals with New Musics Inc., featuring Scott Guy and Elise Dewsbury. So please check this out. Otherwise, thank you, International House. This was great.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Maya, for making everything happen. David Svengali, my graphic designer. Everyone, be safe. We'll talk to you later. Bye now.
Bye-bye.